Recording in progress. Okay, so let's call our meeting to order. And if for the sake of our minute taker, if everyone could just say their names.
El Salvador.
Charlene Galinsky.
Jennifer Wallace.
Jim
Tom
Moore.
Tom Seifert.
That's everybody. Okay, good. So we have quite a few updates. So far, I don't see any public people here, but they might pop in. We have to review our minutes, of which Tom sent today. I don't know how many people had a chance to see them. We'll talk about that in a second. We're going to see if anyone had comments or perspectives on the timetable that I sent around. And then hopefully we'll spend the bulk of the meeting reviewing this document on recommendations for management and maintenance practices. There's a little bit of new business to do too. So let's see, maybe we'll get the minutes. Well, why don't I just make this announcement first, since some of you may have heard independently, but I received notice that Tracy has resigned from the committee. She submitted her resignation letter. I will leave it to you all to talk with her independently. I could say, I think that there's just a lot on her plate right now. And she felt like we were in good shape. So she said she remains available to help out with research and whatnot, but she's formally resigned from the committee.
That's too
I
bad.
thought, yeah, I know. I think she'll be missed. She has a lot of history and a lot of perspective, but she's not, like off in the distance, just the day-to-day stuff. She remains available to fill in blanks on history and perspectives and things like that. Okay, now minutes. So if you didn't have a chance to review the minutes that Tom sent, I would propose that we just review those next meeting rather than take time to read the minutes now. It always takes so much meeting time, but I'm open to suggestions.
I read them and I thought they were fine.
Yeah, I did too.
Oh, good.
And
Yeah, I
I
forgot
read
to say
them,
that.
and I didn't see, I wasn't at the meeting, but they certainly were easy enough to figure out how the meeting went. So
Okay.
And I would support that.
Okay, good. So we can we'll thank Tom.
Oh, I apologize for the tardiness.
Well,
you
you
did a
have a
good
lot.
I'm
Yeah.
glad they were able to be read so quickly.
Do you like the do you like that method of a little bit more compressed information?
I like the meetings. I like the way they were written. I'll go along with it.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so let's have a vote then on what to accept the minutes from.
I'll move to accept them.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Second.
Yep.
So can we have a vote, Charlene Galinsky?
I have to abstain just because I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay, one abstention. Jennifer Wallace says aye. Eric?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And Tom?
Aye.
Okay, minutes accepted. Okay, so I'm going to move into updates. I gave you the information about Tracy. I reached out to 3 engineering firms about estimates on potential H&H study. And I heard, and we met with GZA, so we know that GZA said that they should probably have an estimate to us by March 11th. We did hear back from another one, CEI, Comprehensive Environmental. His estimate was between 50 and 55,000. I thought when I read his explanation, which was brief, that it covered all of the sites, including the Fisk Brook site. So it was the total watershed. And I've asked him to talk to his folks about what might change if that site was not necessarily considered in this go round, so that we would have some way to compare the two. And I also clarified for him again, I wanted to find out, because he was talking about stream flows and storm events and things like that. I wanted to make sure that they were going to include analysis of properly sized culverts, properly located culverts, and other drainage infrastructure. So he's going back to the drawing board. It won't take long, but he's going to give us a revised estimate, which is more, I think, targeted to what we've been talking about.
Should we,
Go ahead, Joe.
should we have a breakdown based on the different locations instead of having it like all, like one side of the lake, X amount of dollars, this side of the lake, X amount, because we don't know what kind of money we got to work with, and we can determine from there what would be the best money spent in the best location.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And I think I kind of was leading him in that direction as well. So far, the other two firms are sort of off and running, and when they get back, we can ask them, once we get their estimates, about what it would look like if that was split into, components. So that's a good idea. Now, CEI was 50 to 55. Oh, and Fuss and O'Neill, they had said they would have their estimate to us last week, and it didn't really come in, but I'm just saying that I'm in communication with everybody, and we should have some real numbers, certainly by, I would say, the third week in March, if not sooner. At that time, I think we can ask all of them to kind of fine tune things. One thing I'll say is that GZA took their time to meet with us and really, got to know what we were thinking about, and have articulated their ability, if they were chosen, to work in a variety of ways with us. The other two firms haven't, they're really going just on, desktop analysis based on the total area of the sites that we're looking at. When I asked him at CEI about more fine tuning his estimate, he asked me about the number of culverts and a couple, and the number of kind of drainage areas that we had identified. He was just interested in numbers. So, we'll see. So far, in terms of my interactions with them, I'll just say, I think GZA has seemed more even interested in the specificity that we've been, that we desire. But I don't want to preempt that. That's just, I'm sharing that impression. Joe?
One last thing. Didn't they work already with FERCog before?
Yes.
They're like, so they have a lot of in with that, with FERCog.
Yep, they did. The Buckland project was through the FERCog watershed-based plan too.
They also worked in Deerfield, and they came to a select board. It was a combined select board, MVP, something else meeting. And they gave a very nice presentation. It was understand that, and the public was invited. So I do know they will, at least in that town, they presented a PowerPoint for us all to have.
Great. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know that we're meant to choose the firm, but I think we're meant to give the select board some concept of what this H&H study is, what firms might be available to do it, and what their ballpark cost estimate are. We can certainly weigh in on the pros and cons of their estimates, but I don't think, and I can check with the select board and see, and maybe Eric, you have some input on that right now, but I don't think we were meant to actually endorse one firm over another in particular, but present it to the select board. Is that a correct understanding?
I would think that might be right. And I would think too, I just know the money's tight, so tight everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
And the
Right.
budgets and all that. I mean, I would guess that we might want, I'm totally guessing out of school, just guessing. I'm guessing this might be a thing that we would want to put on the annual town meeting as a free cash expenditure. Since free cash is generally good for things that are not reoccurring expenses. Hopefully this would not be a reoccurring expense. We do it and it'd be done.
Right.
So that would be a candidate for that. But I just will say there's a lot of, as I've said, I can't emphasize enough how much pressure there's going to be on the budget. I think
Oh, yeah.
the finance committee is working on, it's early in the budget process, but I believe there's approaching like a $400,000 gap between,
Ooh.
you know, what the revenues are and what the expenses could be. And, you know, it's tough right now.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of, I mean, I'm proposing that we have funding discussions, maybe in our next meeting or the one after that, you know, funding this H&H study with some, I mean, I think there are multiple stakeholders here and we'll see how it shakes down, but we might be recommending some kind of combination of funding. I know LWAC has been talking about that as well. So I think our role is to give the select board a sense of that there are firms available, that this is what their estimate would be, and that we have a particularly good feeling about all of them, one of them, two of them, and then we take it from there. If something changes in that, then we can deal with that when we know that it's changed. Tom.
Jan.
Oh, Tom had his hand up
Oh, I'm
first.
sorry.
That's okay, Charlene, I'll wait. You can go first.
No, I don't know much. I know what LWAC is, but where do they get their funding? Because
Oh, they don't need funding.
Yeah, they
have
don't get
funding.
no.
oh, so they couldn't provide anything then. Okay,
Right.
No,
that's
no.
all I want to know.
Tom?
I was just wondering if that DLTA money came in, was some of that possibly dedicatable to this task, or was it for other tasks? I don't even know how much it will be.
I think it could go to this task, but I wouldn't, I think it could, but I don't know that for sure. I think it could.
Okay.
Right, and as far as I know, I've been checking with Gabe about this, that no one has heard from FERCog yet, unless you know something, Eric.
No, I don't. If she would be the one who would know before anybody, so.
Yeah, I don't think they've made, either they haven't made their selections yet, or they haven't made their selections public, but I
I
know
think
they were
that's-
really behind it, you know,
Right.
so I'm expecting they will choose, not only choose Shutesbury, but they asked for our project to be at the top of Shutesbury's list.
Right,
You know, what it is that they get funding from their funding source to provide tech assistance to towns.
right.
So funding for studies, I'm not sure, I don't know their funding parameters and, you know.
I
And this
think it's fair to say
funding,
that funding is tight at every level of local government for, and you know why. I mean,
Right.
it's like, you know, so I think it's a little early to know exactly how it's all going to shake out, but I can't believe, like, some of the money that FERCog has must be federal money, I would assume, and, you know, well, you know.
That's right.
What's gonna happen there, I don't
We'll
know.
see how it goes. Okay, so I think Joe and then Jim.
First, I want to say thank you for making all those calls. Do appreciate it. Secondly, when I worked for the state, they always required me to get multiple bids. Just even, and you don't have to pick the highest or the lowest. You just have to show that you went out and you asked for different bids from different companies.
Right, and that's been a practice in my professional life too. And I don't know what the rules are for our town or town government in Massachusetts, but you know, we would, at the city level, when I worked for New York City, we had to put out, you know, official requests for proposals, advertise requests for proposals and specify the scope of work and all of that, and then there'd be an open competition. I don't know whether such a thing exists for this level, but that's why I think that our role is to recommend to the select board that we are endorsing the H&H study, that we as our task force, we've identified these three firms, and then I think the select board would either put out an RFP or not, or I don't know what, do you know what the rules are about that, Eric?
I'm not really sure, but I think the RFP sounds like it might be something that would be happen. I mean, I know multiple bids are certainly encouraged, if not
Right.
required. I think required.
It's usually
Um,
required, yeah. And
And,
that's fair. I think it should be.
oh, yeah, that's,
Yeah.
I completely get it.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So I think it's a process. That's all I'm saying. You'd have to go through the process, that's for sure.
All these processes.
Yeah,
Damn.
right, exactly.
I say that in the public meeting. Jim,
In the minutes, as I remember, there was a bit where we, I think, discussed having the town request FERCog to aid with technical assistance. The FERCog said it would be much better if they could get a request from the town. So this was just a follow-up. Have we moved in that direction at all?
oh yeah, well, that's what I was alluding to.
Okay.
For sure, the town did put Lake Wyola Stormwater Erosion Task Force as its first of 3 priorities. Every town, I guess, submits 3 priorities, and that went to FERCog. And we haven't yet found out if this project or Shutesbury as a town has been selected. But that process has happened and is in FERCog's hands. Yeah. Okay, so last meeting, it was the meeting with the consultation that we had with, I think it was with GZA, where it came up. One of our members, Bob Douglas, has been talking to some people, neighborhood people, who are wishing that we had a hybrid meeting. So people who don't necessarily have computer access or computer literacy would like to be able to come to town hall and be part of our meetings. So I think that can be arranged. The technology for doing that seems only to exist at town hall in terms of other locations around. Gabe wasn't so up on how to make that happen, but said that select board member Melissa Makepeace O'Neill was.
She's the one.
Yeah. So if you all endorse the idea of having, and not every meeting necessarily, but an occasional hybrid meeting to be more accessible, then I will approach Melissa about that. I mean, we'll still have it on Zoom for those of us who can't be at town hall. It would be very easy for me to be there, for example, so that's no problem. But if you're all okay with that idea, then I will research that with Melissa. It probably wouldn't change our it wouldn't change our process too much. It would just be officially listed as a hybrid meeting rather than a virtual meeting. I don't know if they've worked out. Oh, go ahead, Charlene.
I like the idea because then you're including more people that maybe, as you said, can't access through a computer.
Yeah, I'm up for it. I know that LWAC has their meetings on Saturdays, and sometimes everything has to go down for about 5 minutes while the generator reboots. I don't know whether that's
That doesn't happen anymore, but that
Okay.
did used to happen. You're right, absolutely right about it. But it doesn't happen. We fix that. That's the one problem in the town that got fixed.
That's great. Yeah, I thought that's cool. There's some little genie out in the back riding a bicycle to generate the power and needs a coffee break or something, but.
Yeah.
Now, Jim, your
It is
hand
fixed.
is still up. Is
No,
that
I
an
just
old-
was going to, if it's okay, to move that on this issue. That
Oh,
we
okay.
just, if so.
Well, does anyone want to second that?
I'll second it.
Okay, so all in favor of pursuing occasional hybrid meetings? Jim Moore,
Yes,
Jennifer Wallace, I, Charlene,
Aye.
Eric, Tom,
Aye.
Joe.
I
Okay, so moved, and I will look into that. Bob's not here. He had mentioned that, and we also said we thought it would be great to have a representative from Chester to come and visit with us. So I was just going to follow up with Bob on that, but he's not here, so we'll table that. I looked into the I know this is still about funding, but I just wanted to give you guys this update that I looked into the application deadlines for 604B, which my understanding is that that would be used mostly for design purposes. There's the 319, that's the one that requires a lot of documentation of water quality and things like this. And then the MVP grants. And very hard to know. All I know is that the 319's deadline was April 25th for this next funding year. And I don't know that we would pursue any of these until we got the H&H study done. But my point is that keeping an eye out for these deadlines as we get closer to trying to isolate funding sources seems important. I'm looking at Jim's hand. I have to, okay. Let's see, and then my last kind of update thing. I just want to be secure that I'm, reading correctly, that we're deciding to put off to a future date any kind of geomorphic study of the Fisk Brook area. And that we're not saying that we want to pursue these two things simultaneously in some manner, or that we want to wrap them all together so the H&H study and the geomorphic study proceed in tandem. I think we had said more bang for the buck right now to go for the H&H study on those identifiable drainage systems. And then the complexity of the Fisk Brook project being what it is with multiple municipalities and all of that. But it does deliver a lot of sediment into the lake. So I just wanted to get a read on that one more time from everybody in the group. Jim?
Okay, I just happened to have dinner with the Rivers last Sunday, and Mark mentioned that he thought that there was some movement towards including Fisk Brook in all of it together. So just, I don't know if this was just Mark or
I think this is wishful thinking on Mark's part.
But just that we have some coordination and check as to,
yeah,
just because they want to do it, the doesn't mean we would have to, but it would be nice to just keep everything coordinated.
Yeah, and that's my reason for bringing it up too. It's, I know this is why we started to pursue the H&H route, right? But are we really going to, I guess we could say, are we going to be recommending to the select board that a geomorphic study should be done, but that our immediate focus and our recommendation to them is to work on the other drainage systems and their issues as a first phase. I think we asked for a COG whether there was an advantage, a funding advantage, strategic advantage to going for the big enchilada all at once or breaking it up into components. And I did not get the feeling that they thought there was an advantage one way or the other.
Is there any scientific advantage? Is there, that is to say, do we want, does one system interact with the other in such a way that it would be good to do it all at once, or does that matter?
Well, my understanding of it, I don't know if there's a scientific advantage because there are different kinds of studies.
Right.
The systems as watershed systems are integrated, right? They work in tandem with each other. Whether what goes on with the Fisk Brook system impacts any of the areas that we've been looking at, I don't see that.
Right. Okay.
So that's one feature. So Jim and then Charlene.
Well, that clearly the lake, Mark's concern really was that the previous blowout of a beaver dam led to a large amount of sedimentation in the lake. And his concern is that future blowout of beaver dams would also have this impact on the lake. And so I understand his concern. From personally, speaking as myself right now, I think the complexity of negotiating things with Wendell and getting coordinated between the two select boards and everything there would make it much more complex, and we're more likely to be able to move forward with a smaller, well-defined project. So I would support not bringing the Fisk Pond drainage into the issue.
Okay, hang on to that, Charlene.
I just wondered, would we go through one of those 3 engineering firms if we were to do it, or is that another whole separate agency that we'd have to work through?
Well, I know GZA has done both,
Okay,
so I expect that they are equipped to do both kinds of studies.
okay.
Um,
That was my only question, who would do it?
Okay, Tom?
I think Joe's next.
Oh, okay, Joe? I didn't see
Oh,
Tom.
I will let you go, Tom. I believe that we should work on some of the smaller projects instead of having to deal with Windle and all of that, because that could be a whole project in itself. With different engineering and everything.
And I have some thoughts about how to process wise, but I'll share those at the end. Tom?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I thought from FERCog, I took it as strong, but maybe it's because I poured over the video so long when I was making the minutes of it, but suggested doing the H&H now and doing the Fisk fluvial geomorphic mapping or whatever it is later, but not do it.
Right.
And that it would potentially even make it easier to do or better to do if it were separated out, even in terms of public outreach and support, because they mentioned how this will be much more obvious work being done now, like in the face of the public with roads and whatnot, and that could be an advantage for just bringing awareness to the whole issue of stuff going into the lake from Fisk Brook as well as from the roads.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it could be done. I think they did say it's all one big shebang, but I don't know about the science part of it, but they did indicate that it could be done in parts. And that
Right.
if they were doing it in parts, they would do the H&H first for several weeks.
This was kind of my recollection too. And what I'm thinking does make some kind of sense so that it's not, in other words, because once let's just hope that we get the funding together to do these H&H study. And that study is going to be in progress. And there isn't any reason why we can't, if the select board decides to retain us as their advisor on this stuff, that we can't start, or the 2 towns can't start communicating about this, what's involved with this, what the geomorphic study is. We will have built a relationship with one of the engineering firms already. And that I don't see any reason why the negotiations, if we even want to call it initial discussions with the stakeholders on the whole Fisk Brook thing, can't proceed, because all of that would have to be done before you even got to the geomorphic study. So I don't think, my recommendation to the select board would be, let's do the H&H study, and if phase 2 is Fisk Brook, let's get started on phase 2 while the H&H studies are being completed. I think that's reasonable, and it's not putting it way far in the past or wait for everything else to be done and then we'll get to Fisk Brook, because it is a concern, I mean, it is, there could be some imminent problems. Eric?
I'm just going to say that given the funding challenges, which we've already talked about, but I would think that if we could break it down into smaller pieces at a time, we're more likely to have it happen. Put it that way. If you go to them and say we want the whole enchilada, they're going to say no. enchiladas too expensive. You know what I
Right.
mean? So that's I'm just a little gut feeling would be that would be better, smarter if there's no detriment scientifically to doing it that way. It would be better to break it into smaller projects.
So I can double check on the science part of it. And I definitely, my hunch is that that's a good way to go. Plus, we would have, in terms of getting funding for the larger scale Fisk Brook, we will have developed a track record as a town already, hopefully a successful track record. And also working with multiple parties, right? With Lake Wyola Association residents, private property owners in the form of the Pine Brook Camp. If we've started doing this work on not only the H&H, but on the maintenance and management pieces, that would set us up as a viable entity for another funding source and project. Joe?
Just a question, because I don't know the answer, and maybe some of you do. Because they mentioned the beaver dams that are causing all the sediment on that side. Have they corrected that with the beaver dams and everything? Or is that something that's ongoing?
No,
think the
there are
concern is
beaver
that-
dams up there now still.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
ongoing.
I think that the big concern is that a big storm event could flush out those existing beaver dams. Because there's no infrastructure related to those beaver dams other than what the beaver have created.
Can I just add that there are a couple human-built dams that are part of that same drainage. So
Mhm.
one of the issues is a blowout of a beaver dam that then blows out a human mill dam that continues through down the drainage into the lake. So they are somewhat related.
Right. Okay, so I think I know what needs to happen here for now anyway. And I think if it's okay with you, we're ready to move on to any questions. Now, that was a pretty bare bones timetable that I put up there. I could share my screen now, but maybe, I don't know whether, we're already at 7:30, so we might want to move right into management and maintenance. But are there questions about timing that we should resolve tonight? We're all good
Thanks,
as far as,
Yep, I'm good.
okay, so we'll just let that document, I'll keep monitoring it, and we can let that document be a kind of a map, a work map for ourselves going forward.
Sorry, I think Charlene mentioned it earlier, somebody did it might be timing related. Whether we'll meet with Dave from the highway,
Okay, yeah.
or is
So,
that, or are we talking about that later?
no, I can talk about it right now.
Okay.
Dave is available. I know Mondays works best for Jim, and I think that that's super important, being on the roads committee for the association. So Dave, he's always weather related and broken truck related and various other highway department emergency related. But he said, let's try again for Monday at 8:30. And I'm going to set up a Zoom link for that. It doesn't need to be an official meeting, so I'll send you all the Zoom link. The purpose of that is really for him to take a look at the management and maintenance recommendations that I sent to you all, which are really FERCog's recommendations, and also to inform us about practices that he has, ideas that he has. So it's just a way for us to have a little back and forth with him. So it will be set up. I'll be posting it tomorrow, and it'll be Monday the 3rd at 8:30 a.m. Anyone who can make it, great. Okay.
Mhm.
Okey doke. All right. So I am going to share my screen now, and I'm going to put on this document that is a kind of assemblage of FERCogs. And I'll just
It
Hang
might,
on one sec.
Jen,
Mhm.
can you post a meeting for Monday the 3rd tomorrow, time-wise?
Oh, I think so, as long as I do it tomorrow. I could do it tonight too.
And I don't know, because I think it needs to be 48 hours in advance, not including Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays.
Oh, you can't include Saturdays and Sundays? All
Right,
right.
but
Well, I can do it tonight. Does that give us enough time?
I don't know if it will be 48,
Oh,
you know, non-weekend hours, because it's 8:30 on Monday morning.
right.
Just looking at the calendar, I think it would have been 8:30 this morning.
Yeah,
would have
darn.
been the cutoff,
I didn't hear back from him till this
Sure,
afternoon.
but
Well,
I'm thinking, not all of us have to go.
yeah, right.
If not a quorum of us went, then it can continue
Right.
as just an informational, you know, meeting.
And then we can, I mean, it can be recorded.
It can be Zoomed, it can be recorded, but
Yeah.
if
So
more than a
Jim,
quorum of us show up,
Jim, do you want to join me on Monday? And then,
or if we wanted to decide now, maybe on just a few people, I don't know
Yeah.
how to make it.
Okay, is this a online
yeah,
discussion, or are we in the field at this
it's
point?
online.
Okay, I can make it. And can we just declare it a consulting meeting rather than an official meeting?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
no
but then
decisions
just
will be, no
we still-
decisions will be made. We're just gathering information about the highway setup to include it in later meetings, so that, I don't know,
But
you
we,
know,
but we
Then we
still
just
have to
won't
have,
post it.
we can't post it then, but I still have to create the Zoom link through the town Zoom platform.
But you'll share that with us
I'll just share
over
it with you
email
via-
or to the
via
people who are
email.
going. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I'll do. I'll still set it up tonight and I'll email it to everybody, but it won't be on the town calendar. Thank you, Tom. That was a good catch.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if even a quorum of us will show up, but does anybody know if they're definitely not going or going? Because I don't care either way.
Well,
Well,
if they're gonna take information, I don't need to be there.
It's optional.
Unless
If
you want me
y'all-
to be there.
If you all want to come, great. I'm not going to post it. I'm going to send the link out to everybody.
My
just
wife would be really
we don't
happy
have-
if we can go.
Charlene, your hand is
Well,
up.
I was just gonna say, if you need someone not to go, I feel the least knowledgeable about the road, so I will give up my space to any. I really, I like Jim and Joe are very knowledgeable about the area. So, I feel both of them would be great to have, and obviously Jen but I definitely would give up my spot.
yeah, Eric, do you have a feeling? 'Cause-
No, I would too. I'd be glad to give it up, or, I think this is my 7th meeting this week. So my wife's very happy with it. She'd be very happy if I turned one down.
Especially on Monday morning, right?
Yeah, right.
So I don't need to go. I'm thinking Bob Douglas might want to go because
Yeah, he might.
He's in the.
So,
I think it's okay if I don't post it. I'm just going to make a link
Well,
and I'll
we-
send it out.
oh yeah, that's true, because then it's just a site visit.
That's
All
right.
right.
Right, so we don't deliberate during it, we just gather the
Right.
Yeah.
information.
I
Excuse
mean,
me.
we can ask
Right,
questions and
right. Okay.
ask
Yeah,
Dave, but
exactly.
we're
We
not
can-
like making decisions or anything.
And this is
Correct.
all Zoom?
It'll be Zoom.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry if I made too much of a big deal out of that. Now it's clicking better.
Okay, clickety click. So I have shared my screen. Can everybody see it?
Yep.
Okay. So partly, I think I have a question about the presentation. Is this format reasonable? That's one question that I have, because where we have maintenance and management recommendations, we have multiple sides of the lake. We have multiple kinds of responsibilities and all of that. So it's a little bit challenging to organize. But what I tried to do is pull out recommendations that FERCog made that applied to all sides of the lake. So it doesn't matter where it is, and it doesn't matter who's responsible for caring for those roads. So, and you all have had a chance to look at this?
yeah.
Okay. So So this is something that would, recommendations that would apply to all the roads. Any questions here? Any additions, any deletions?
Are these recommendations based on what's there right now, not what's going to be put there?
Correct.
Okay.
Because similarly to the geomorphic study proceeding in tandem with the H&H study, these maintenance and management practices, many of them can proceed while the bigger analysis of structural interventions is being researched and designed and discussed and all of that. Charlene, you have your hand.
Yeah, I don't understand what disconnect turnouts from streams or places. I read that a couple of times, and is a turnout where a retention pond is? I was confused with that. I've never heard the term turnout before, or at least if I did, I don't remember it. Does anybody
Okay,
know what that?
anyone want to take that on?
I can say that was my question too. I'm going to lower my hand.
Okay, I think I have a sense of what it is, but I think that there are places where there have been, I don't know what it would be, not plowed necessarily, but where almost like a snow plow would have taken the material off to the side, meaning water and sediment. It doesn't go anywhere, it just goes off to the side so it doesn't go down the road. But I'm going to highlight this right now.
Yeah.
That it needs to be, I have to pick another color. How about purple? that needs to get defined. So thank you, that's good. I think
what confused me about that was turnouts connected to like disconnect turnouts from streams. I only understood what you just described as being from a road, because I know there are some roads that have a plowed, like on the left or on the right, there'll be a section where water can go. So it was the from stream. If I understood what a turnout was, then I didn't understand what it was from a stream.
It might be that FERCog has observed that some turnouts in our study area are turning out into streams, as opposed to dead ending somewhere in the woods.
Okay, but it says from streams here.
Oh yeah, from streams. Well,
or maybe they mean disconnect them from connecting to streams. I guess I didn't know if the turnout started at the stream or ended at the stream. That's
right. I'm going to clarify that with them. I feel like we could wave our hands over it and try and figure out what they meant. Jim.
Okay. One of the issues is we're right in the middle of it right now is the damage that's done in the winter.
Right.
And somehow of recognizing that as an issue so that, the maintaining grounds sounds good, but over the winter when the snowplow comes through, it knocks down on the dirt roads a lot of the crowns. And so that's something that can't be redressed until the spring at least. And the other thing that again is the winter maintenance is the amount of sand and grit that gets put down on the roads that then simply becomes the stuff that moves downhill in the first heavy rainstorm. So that part of the maintenance is getting through the winter without damaging things as much as they are getting damaged. I don't know if there's a way to do that, but it is a concern.
So what is the way to phrase that? If it's a
well, that's why I spoke in circles.
Okay. Let's see. Well, we got to plow the roads.
Oh yeah.
Is it really spring? It's addressing damage that's happened in the winter. In the spring, we need to address that.
Yes.
Okay. This is shorthand. Okay, something like that. In the spring, have routine scheduling for addressing winter damage to the roads.
Great for a draft.
Spring routine scheduling. Okay, well, that's fine. That'll give me an idea. And let me just highlight that. Okay.
I remember having to travel on Window Road where they used to have to fill it with stone half the winter time in the spring because it just turned into mud.
Wow.
So I have Charlene's hand up and Jim's.
Oh, mine's down.
Okay.
And-
Charlene?
And I know that, I know it just addresses reduced salt and sand, but is there another material that I know around us? They sometimes put something down on the roads, especially if they know it's going to be an ice storm. Is that something different than reduced salt and sand? Does Shutesbury use anything else?
We're going to ask that of Dave on Monday.
Okay, because I know, yeah, that's why some of the roads look almost white, by the time you
Right.
go
That's
out
not
and
a
the
good
ice
color.
comes.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think it's magnesium chloride that they do, that's a sort of a pre-treatment, if you will,
Mhm.
they use.
Somehow I got
I know
that.
Shutesbury's at least looking into it. I know I was talking to Dave about it the other day, so I know he's looking into it, but I would say he'll know more when you talk to him.
Okay.
I heard it's hard to use on dirt roads. You can use
That
it on
might be
asphalt
right.
because it sits to the top. We used to use that at school in the parking lots and stuff. In any dirt area, it would just sink in, so it wouldn't coat it.
Okay.
That might be right. Good question to ask.
Once we make these recommendations, of course, we need to figure out much more with them, but this is just the first cut at what such a thing might look like in our report to the select board. Okay, so those were the ones that seem to cover everything. And then we move into Lake Wyola maintenance recommendations that were more general in the sense that not particular to locations. And we're leaving off the table now all the funding problems of the, dealing with private road stuff. I think we need to figure out and research, and I have another set of funding choices of what kind of funding is available for nonprofit organizations to recrown and maintain their roads. They do exist. Eventually, we want to make a presentation to the Lake Wyola Association about these recommendations too. But Charlene, you have your hand up.
Well, that was going to be my question. Is it, since this is a public meeting and this information is being shared by all of us and also to whomever, watches this video, could I bring these recommendations to our next meeting so that we could have a discussion? Or is it something you want to wait until a representative from, like Jen, how you came the last time? Would you want to come again? Because, there's a lot in here, and, obviously some is financial, but some isn't. And I just wonder if it would be feasible and practical for me to actually bring these recommendations and to the board so that they could look at them and really have a discussion rather than just a presentation.
Well, that's just such a good question. And so I'm so glad to hear that such a thing could be possible. But here's my process question. So again, we're tasked with making recommendations to the select board. And I don't know whether, for example, and these are mostly our FERCog's recommendations reorganized. But I don't know that we can say, that these are our recommendations until the select board has received them and made them their own, because we're basically going to be presenting these or something like these, whatever we approve and vote on to the select board. In our charge, one of the things is to present our findings to these different committees, right? To Concom, to LWAC, and to LWA, and give feedback to the select board about how those were received. So there is something to be said about, sharing these and discussing these and getting input from these different committees. But I don't know, what do you all think? I mean, I think
I'd like to just suggest that we take a meeting with, or think of the meeting with LWA with as consulting. It's just as someone who deals with the road committee stuff. I mean, a lot of the things that are put forward here are things that are already done to a certain extent. And what would be nice is to sort of accept that a bunch of this stuff is being done, but to look for ways to upgrade it. So, I mean, and this is kind of like, I run academic meetings a lot, so I know that how things get presented is really important in getting to the end that you want. So that if we could ask LWAC to work with us on developing things to be incorporated into the report to the select committee, it would be probably received much differently than being told later after the select committee accepts it, the Lake Association will hear about it. That won't work particularly well, I have a feeling.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on, all right, so you as a roads committee person could identify what in here is already being done.
Yeah.
And then when you said, I think you said there are things that we could be suggesting that would augment it.
Or yeah, things that we could add. I would flip it around a bit of asking the LWA what it could see being upgraded, and asking them for suggestions for us to incorporate into our report to the select committee, so the town meeting. And it's just, part of that's a way of presentation. Other bits are that there's a lot of expertise. There are a lot of people who've worked a number of years on that road, so those roads, so that they know the things that kind of work but could work better, areas that could be developed and improved. And so that's where their advice would be very useful for developing ways to maintain the roads better.
Okay. Charlene?
And I know I've had, and I actually had a discussion with you, Jen, as well as with George on separate occasions. And, we talked about that establishment of a drainage and erosion committee, and that was discussed at one of our last LWA meetings, and it wasn't fully embraced by the directors. And mostly not because it's not a good idea. It's because just getting people for committee work is not the easiest task in the world. But so after that discussion that I had with you, and also I had one with George, he felt, and I don't think it's a bad idea at all, that with the roads committee and having Jim on that as well, and then you have, Lake Wyola Association people on it, some of whom are not boards of director, on the board of directors, that roads committee could sort of serve that purpose. And I really think that's not a bad idea. And he just brought it up to throw it out there that rather than establish another committee, why not use the present roads committee as someone to consult with, as Jim said, like what other things need to be augmenting what's already being done. And these are the people who know those roads the best out of all of out of our committee. But I know the idea of establishing another committee is very good an idea that it is. It's just so hard. We have a few ad hoc committees that we can't get people to, and we rely on people to just say, well, I'll do it another year. And you don't want it to be run like that. You want people who know what they're doing. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, that makes some sense. I mean, these are internal decisions that Lake Wyola Association gets to make. And I think one thing that I would want to leave this discussion with is it time for us as a task force to present these recommendations, which are really FERCog's recommendations reviewed by us, to LWA and get some feedback from them? Is it time to do that? And then I guess, can we do that? I think we can do that without having made our presentation to the select board, because in the charge it says to present our stuff to these other organizations. So is it time to do that, or do we want to massage this a little bit more, or do a little bit more with it? Or, because I have no objections if we could get on the agenda to sharing it. Jim?
I would think that I'd support that, going that way of taking what's here, something that comes from FERCog, and that asking for local input, more local knowledge of, what on this road, what here, what's there. And as long as no one tells my wife, I'd be willing to serve with Charlene to take things to an executive meeting, to take the FERCog report to there, if Charlene is willing to go with me.
Well, I'll go with you if I'm allowed, not
Sure.
being on a
No,
committee.
I didn't mean to imply that.
Okay, Charlene, your hand is up.
And well, I think even, the Lake Wyola Association does embrace people coming, as long as you know, so you can put it in the plans, because we always have a very full agenda. But, and it worked well how Jen, you presented right at the beginning of the meeting. So we had that information completed, and then then you were done and we could move forward with the rest of our meeting. But I wonder too, and I can think of a few people who are on the roads committee who are very active in doing things around the lake, that are not on the road, that are not on the Lake Wyola Association, that it might be good to invite the whole roads committee or people who have helped to that meeting to hear this. And again, they would know the feasibility of, like, is this practical? Is this something we can do? Or is this beyond our scope and we'd have to look at more of a private contracting kind of thing for some things? So
what you raise, first of all, I think that the little update that I did for the board, which was, I don't know, like all of 10 minutes long, you see the comprehensiveness of these recommendations. Right. This is not going to be something that's going to go quickly with any discussion and then the board being able to get onto its other business. It sounds like it might be a special presentation, maybe as you suggest, to the roads committee. And George is involved with roads and he's on the board. I mean, maybe we're requesting of the Lake Wyola Association the individuals that they identify as the key people who should be the first ones to receive and discuss these recommendations with us. I mean, in the same way that we're kind of doing that we only have Dave to work with in the highway department, but it's the same kind of thing. We're giving Dave the early look at this and saying, okay, what is this? He already said he has some ideas. He wants to know what's in here. So we're doing that with Dave, and we should do that. We could do that with whatever component of LWA gets identified. Does that make sense?
And I think I'd have to go look, a meeting coming up in mid-March. So if there's no urgency, then what I could do is bring up, could we have one additional meeting in the month so that we could look over these recommendations from FERCog and just dedicate the whole meeting to that?
That sounds to me like it gives it enough time for back and forth and discussion and so on. And as you say, inviting people who worked with roads over the years. I don't want to spend too much more time on organizing the Lake Wyola Association business. But I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea. Like you all think, okay, this is okay. We can share this now, and identifying who and how to have a good discussion about it. Joe.
I was on the roads committee for one section. I still fill in potholes on different locations around the roads. But to do the roads correctly with crowning and everything, the equipment that it takes is not like the average person down the road. You got to hire somebody with the right machine is using a grader, which can set the crown on it, and then rolling it and using the right different material on the top, where you do the entire road with the same material so it binds. Filling a road up with this material and that, it doesn't bind because it's usually not the same material all the way around it. And
Right, and
I was on the roads committee. The problem we had is there's a pretty good sized cost involved to use the right equipment to do the right job.
Yeah, so I mean, that's where I think splitting this up into things that are going to require some funding or hiring of contractors, et cetera, and things that can be done by the association members themselves. So this is like the wish list. And then certain things are going to definitely be bigger commitments and certain things not. And like Jim said, some things are being done right now. So it could be that as we get more granular with this, that those categories get added, you know, things that are going to require larger scale thinking, larger scale funding, like recrowning, and things that, you know, are being done now and can continue to be done, and then things that aren't being done at all and probably should be done. So, and that's all, you know, we can come to those conclusions in these meetings that we might be having with the LWA people. So as we come up on 8 or a little after 8, is this kind of, I mean, this is highlighted just for our purposes. I don't know that it would get presented that way, but is this helpful to have it divided by sides and responsibility?
I think it's good to have a discussion with them to let them know what's in this whole paperwork, so that they could, if not anything, they could start planning for it. Yeah. And get an idea, so maybe get an idea on their end what it would cost. Right. And go from there.
Okay, was there anything that stuck, is that a word, stuck out to you?
Jen, I was just going to say, if we do, like Joe said, present this to them in advance, or presenting this as a document, I don't know if you have it, but what struck me is it would have helped to have an instruction somewhere that you will see repeated recommendations for the different areas. And it's like when you're reading regulations or a bylaw, like you're like, did I already read this in another part? And yes, you did. It's just that now we're in a different section where we're going to repeat that. So just some sort of alert to that, I think, will help everyone know that it can sometimes seem lengthy even, but there's a lot of repeated information.
Okay. Look at that. Never mind. Forget I wrote that. Okay. So this breaking things out by sides of the lake and by sort of who the responsible parties are based on ownership, is that a reasonable way to organize it in terms of our report to the select board? Is there anything wrong with that?
I think as a start for the discussion, it's a great place. Just bring it up and kind of acknowledge that it's just the start and it's going to change, and we'll go with it.
Okay.
What do you do with the roads that are private, that are part of the lake?
You mean like the Laurels?
Just in theory, I mean, Lake Wyola takes care of the Laurels, but the Laurels are not part of the Lake Association.
True enough, but the association has the agreement to help maintain it. So
maintain them, but
Yeah, well, let's just start there and see where it goes. I mean,
Right.
Yeah. I mean, if we needed special permission from the owner to recrown the roads or, I mean, we'd have to, that could be a roadblock. It could not be a roadblock, but we'd have to cross that when we
Yeah,
got
because I
there.
used to live on North Laurel, and I know that the road is owned by the people on the,
Right.
but I know the lake always took care of them because everybody on the road were all members of the lake association.
Okay. All right. So unless someone has something really burning on this, I think we're in general agreement that this is the template for how we'll be presenting our findings on maintenance and management. We'll ask some questions of Dave on Monday. And Charlene, you're going to touch base with LWA about a special session where we can present things and have a full discussion about it.
mhm.
Does that sound good?
Yes, so just so that I don't make a mistake in giving material out that I shouldn't, can I send, like, cut and paste all the maintenance part only, this section of what we're looking at? Can I cut and paste that to send to them to preview it? Because it's so much easier. Like, even with the minutes, when we can read things ahead of time, it does save on some discussions. So is
It
that
would be my recommendation that I do some work with this in
okay?
terms of organization. I agree with you. They should have it in advance.
Okay.
So if we could get the date set and I could do some of the reorganization of it.
Well, what I would tell them is you would forward them the document. How about that? Rather
That's-
than have it
yep.
come through me.
That's
Okay.
perfect. That's
All
perfect.
right. Okay.
Tom,
Oh, thanks. I wanted to ask Jim quickly. It's a little off topic, but is there an agreement, did you say, with the association and the owner of the Laurels?
Uh, um, no, nothing I would go to court with. I think it's a pretty informal agreement.
Oh, okay. Do you know if it's a document?
I'm first generation Lake. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
okay. So I think we're about ready to close out this meeting. The next thing that we'll do at our next meeting, it might be to review a revise of this. The main thing I think would be to move to what we're recommending for outreach and education. Those were the 3 parts of the FERCog report, and those will be the 3 parts of our report. And so I have a draft already, which is, again, most of this is just reorganization and streamlining. Well, this one wasn't very streamlined of the material that was in FERCog, but we're going to be making a recommendation on education too. So I would suggest that sometime, in the next week or 2, I would send that draft to you in the same way I sent this, and we'll just put that on our next meeting agenda to get feedback from us all and talk about that. Does that sound okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I know we have grant funding to work on, and I think, let's see, this will be the March meeting. So I think if we put off grants until after we get the engineering estimates and have a discussion about funding sources for all of this in April, I think we'll be in pretty good shape to meet our deadline of giving some kind of report to the select board by June, whenever that was, mid-June. So that's the sort of time frame. Next meeting would be talking about education and any loose ends that we haven't talked about. And then the meeting after that, we'll be talking about what the estimates were that we've gotten and how we might approach research on funding, both public funding that would be available just to the town, and funding that might be available to Lake Wyola Association, and then funding that could be a combination of the two. Does that sound like a good game plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
The only thing I would just caution, if we want anything to go on the town, annual town meeting agenda, like in terms of money, production and and so forth, it would have, I'm guessing it would have to be like, really beginning of April. We'd have to get that.
right. So I'm hoping we can get the engineering study people in time for that. But if
Okay.
it's going on the agenda for the town meeting, not the agenda, but has to go on the town meeting, does a warrant have to be all written up by then and has to be very specific, or?
Right, and I'm not sure the deadline is. I believe the town meeting is April 26th, if
is.
I'm not mistaken.
It is April 26th.
And I believe there's at least a 2-week kind of I think it has to be done 2 weeks before that, I think, I've never really done it, frankly, myself, so I think, but I think that's what it is.
Okay, well, I might need to put a little fire underneath these engineering firms.
Right.
But
You
I
might
don't
wanna
know that
touch-
we can, I don't think, I don't know whether it can get on this meeting. Well, we could have a special town meeting about it, I
Yes, that's what I
guess.
was gonna say, there can be
Yeah.
almost always is a special town meeting in the fall, so that would be next fall.
I
So,
think that's probably more likely because
Yeah.
we can't, the select board's gonna have to
no, I
be
know,
happy about this, yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
town government works at the speed of paint drying, as far as I'm
I
concerned,
know.
sometimes, this is a classic example.
right. But yet it does work.
It does work, yeah, so, well, I'm glad, thank you for saying that.
It
I'm
mostly,
glad it does.
it mostly works.
Mostly, I'd say it mostly works.
Okay. All right, well, that's good. So let's see, can we set a meeting date for March? Thursdays in general seem to be good. I know I cannot, well, we have in town, we have a special public forum on Lake Wyola safety on the 27th of March, so that cannot be a date for us to meet. If we're sticking to Thursdays in March, I guess it would be the 20th would be the next desirable date.
Yeah, I think that works, yeah, the 13th, I think there's gonna be a Lake Wyola,
Well, they moved that.
oh, it's now been moved? I thought has it been moved? Okay.
No, in the meeting on just this past week, I think the chair of the voting committee isn't available on the 13th, so they moved it to the 27th.
Oh, okay. I wasn't up on that. Okay, good. I'll change my calendar.
So I'm going to propose March 20th then for our next meeting. Does that sound like something most people can attend?
Right.
Looks
Yeah,
good
that's
now.
good.
Works for me.
Okay, good. And
Yep.
we'll let Bob know and those who are absent. All right, so we're set for March 20th, and then we just need a motion to adjourn.
When did you say that Lake Wyola boating thing was? The 27th?
They moved
Yep.
it to the 27th.
Okay, so that's a Thursday too. Okay, all right. And what time is that one?
I think it's 6:30.
I think that's
But they're
right.
still confirming things with elementary school and so on. So it's not an officially scheduled thing yet. I was observed at the select board meeting on Tuesday. So,
Is that gonna be a Zoom meeting too?
I talked to the acting town administrator today, because I was gonna, just send out some reminders to people, and that's indefinite because it may be that the equipment for doing hybrid meetings doesn't exist at the elementary school.
I think that I would plan on that. It will not be a Zoom meeting. That's what I would plan on.
Yeah, it's probably be in person at the elementary school.
Can I send somebody to represent me? Cause I'll be in Myrtle Beach.
I think we'll let the boating people be on their problem solving, and we'll keep our problem solving on sediment and
Yeah, I think the idea too is it's not gonna be a
Stormwater.
voting situation. It's gonna be just a forum of like let people all talk and what they
Right.
think about things. I don't think anything's gonna really be decided. I
it's
don't
not a
think.
voting thing. Yeah, it's
Right.
just
Okay.
in a sharing perspectives thing. Okay, so back to March 20th, that's us, 7 p.m. And we're looking for a meeting, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, so let's have Charlene's vote
Yes,
and Eric,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Jennifer, yes, and did Jim?
I'll say yes.
Okay, there he
And
is.
Joe said yes.
Joe
Hey,
said yes.
Joe.
Okay,
Hey, Tom,
Still-
good job on
you-
the minutes and good job taking care of that, Jim.
you're still on the
Thank
island,
you.
Joe. Okay, so well done, everybody. Nice meeting.
Have a good
Yeah.
evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much for doing it, organizing it.
Yep, and we'll see whoever we see on Monday at 8:30. I'll send you the link.
Sounds good.
Good
Okay,
night.
take good care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.